This video is brought to you by Straight Goods News, Canada's alternative online news source. Visit straightgoods.ca.
We welcome the Prime Minister's visit to China. We think it's a very important visit. It's a very timely visit given what we've seen at the UN in the last few days. However, we do hope that it won't be only a matter of exchanging a pipeline for pandas, and that the dialogue will be broader than that. We do think that the Prime Minister needs to talk about human rights in particular. When he was elected, the Prime Minister put human rights at the forefront of the relation, and everything was behind that. But nowadays it seems that it's a lot about trade. We have nothing against trade, but there are other issues that are on the agenda, should be on the agenda. Human rights is one of them. It's an important issue, but it's not an issue on which we should come and say, oh, you're the bad boys and things like that. We need really to engage in a dialogue. We also need to talk to China, we also need to talk with China about a range of issues. Of course, we're thinking about Syria, but also Iran, the state of the world economy. We need to broaden and deepen the relationship with China. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. My name is Brian Massey, Member of Parliament for Windsor West and International Trade Critic. This mission is very important. I had the opportunity to visit Beijing in 2007 and meet with the Chinese Automobile Association. At that time, learned a lot of value-added work that can be done from both countries. But I'm very concerned about the way that the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party is approaching trade in general, but also their record, which has been very much a loss of value-added jobs, manufacturing jobs. The most recent stats that we've been working on show that in 2005, when the Harper administration took control, we had a trade imbalance on manufacturing at $15.9 billion. By 2007, that had actually reached at $32.3 billion. And as 2010, we are now up to a trade imbalance on manufacturing to $80.8 billion. And unfortunately, the Prime Minister has loaded his group with basically the natural resource sector, which gives me great concern when we look at softwood lumber, for example. The value-added jobs that we are losing in that is significant. We need to have an overall business plans. We just can't be a country that ships out natural resources. And it was interesting as well with the pipeline in the oil and gas industry now. It's a knee-jerk reaction to his failed policies in Washington. For a number of different years, the Prime Minister has been focusing international trade with the United States on basically the oil and gas industry. The messaging when I've been down there in Washington with conservatives has been consistently saying that we have the safe natural resources. You don't have to get them from Saudi Arabia or elsewhere. It became a political thorn for the Obama administration, and we neglected our trade with the United States in terms of processing our goods and services across the border, and that's why we've seen the thickening of the border. So in summary, we're very much concerned with the type of messaging that the Prime Minister is bringing to China. And again, manufacturers are worried about this. I know that, for example, the mold-making industry has had to reinvent itself and to make itself more successful, and it can be done. We can save some of these value-added jobs with a proper business plan, but it needs to be done with the proper accountability. And again, the messaging that we're hearing from the Prime Minister and the dominance of this trade mission is that we are the natural resource for you, and that's just not sufficient, because of those value-added jobs that are being lost in Canada, we are going to continue to lose the quality of life in the middle class that's disappearing right now.
Politics.
Hi, this is from Mr. Massey. We heard in the State of the Union address President Obama's desire to bring jobs back to the United States. We're seeing Canadian jobs going south. To what extent do you think we should be tough with the Obama administration, or the current government should be, to basically complain about these kind of beggar-thy-neighbor policies?
Yeah, well, this is an interesting thing that's taken place over the last number of years. This administration, the Harper administration, has really let Canadians down when the Americans attacked the northern border as being unsafe and being a place where terrorism can come from, a place where goods and services need to be checked extensively beyond certain thresholds, even when they promised certain, like the Manly Ridge Accord that was done, that was never followed through properly. And so whenever there's been an American politician questioning the veracity of our border, we've just accepted did that. And so we've had photo ops, and this government's done, press conferences, say, for example, on the Shiprider Agreement, where we've militarized the Great Lakes. And they've been celebrating the, a tearing up of a treaty that actually was, world-renowned from the War of 1812 to bring in, gunboats on the Great Lakes. And now we have drone planes, and we have other issues. So what's been taking place is the border's been thickening, and our goods and services have not been able to get across as quickly. And the recent perimeter security deal that was signed, again, it's focusing on the risk and the security issue as the first and foremost. And what that's done is there was a concerted effort in the southern states to start saying, well, the northern border is at risk, just like the southern border was to Mexico. It was all politics. And so the end result is that we've been focusing on selling oil and gas in Washington as a priority, and not our manufacturing, our value added. And the Obama administration has a very specific strategy, whether it be through Buy America and Buy American, there's two actually acts, and also as well to regalvanize some of those jobs. And unfortunately what we've seen is some of the manufacturers make choices over in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and other places like that are starting to emerge again because they don't want to retool the factories over here in Canada with uncertainty with the border. The most recent one we saw in London, for example, is a classic example of, those workers got up every single day, went and produced a product that actually turned a profit for the company, and they basically had a good quality of life. And now it's being ripped from them by an American company that's just basically taking out its competition. So we need to be much more forceful with the United States. We need to challenge that the border really isn't that big of a risk as it's being made out to. We should be focusing on processing and getting things through. We shouldn't be focusing on, again, just the fact that it's a security issue and checking everything that goes through the way that it's being done. And once again, this agreement that was recently signed, the part of the problem about it is that it was supposed to, some of the Manly Ridge Accord was supposed to take care of some of those things. And we have not held them accountable to the fact that when we did improvements on the border, we're supposed to actually get reduced waiting times and improve services.
I'd also like to ask you guys, I know in the past the NDP has been quite vocal in support of Tibet, as well as the Falun Gong in China. I see you guys haven't mentioned that today. Is that still a concern?
Well, I think the issue of Tibet is mainly when we're talking human rights. This includes the issue of respect for human rights in Tibet, and it's a big issue. It would need, I think, maybe one press conference on its own. As a standalone issue, it's a very important, big issue, but this is part of what we need to discuss what Canada needs to discuss when it discusses human rights. And as usual, there's always, I work on the China desk a few years ago, in fact, at the beginning of my career in foreign affairs, and I remember we always had those individual cases of human rights that we wanted to raise with the Chinese authorities. So when we're talking human rights, we're talking individual cases, we're talking specific situations like Tibet. We're also talking issues like freedom of press, freedom of information, and all those issues. We're basically talking good governance. However, there's, and knowing a bit the way Chinese government and Chinese people like to dialogue and operate and see themselves. I think it's very important that it be a dialogue and not only coming in and saying you should do this or you should do that. And I'm quite preoccupied in this respect because the government has shown in foreign affairs that it takes more a kind of an approach of, I call it sometimes a Star Wars approach. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then it goes around the world saying, okay, you are bad, you are good, and I don't think this kind of approach is either helpful or enhance Canada's credibility abroad.
I think that What I'm really disappointed with regards to this mission here is we have an unsophisticated approach to trade, and I'll use an example: labor rights and environmental rights and human rights. There should be a team going over in this trade mission that examines those things, because if we're going to be selling our oil and gas and natural resources and trying to get it over into the Chinese market, if we're going to compete fairly in a trading relationship, that's what you want. If those issues aren't addressed, then we're going to lose more jobs, and we're going to have more difficulty penetrating the market. And we're going to see basically Canadians have their own natural resource used as a subsidy to basically take their jobs if they are going to have an advantage on labor, environmental, and health and human rights. And those things need to be addressed. I mean, the Canadians expect that. I mean, we don't want to lower standards, and we've seen recently the reports coming out from the New York Times, for example, on some of the manufacturing that's taking place. And I would expect that to be centerpiece, a part of what we do over there, especially if we're going to be offering natural resources to China that can be used in a competitive state against ourselves. And there's a responsibility there that the people that have invested in under our manufacturing here in Canada, whether it be through this, the exchange, or whether it be through a private, that they're going to at least be able to have the opportunity to compete fairly. And they get frustrated, and I've talked to some of the owners in some of the manufacturing sector, and they get frustrated when they see their natural resource being dangled out there as a potential threat for their own business in their future because of the standards that they have to compete against. And we can't continue to lower our standards and still have the middle class and the working way that we have today. We simply are just seeing it with the evidence of our manufacturing deficit. I said earlier, it's $80.8 billion. It's
bilateral.
Yeah, that's just for manufacturing. That's just for manufacturing, and that's our deficit.
For the whole country, not just bilaterally?
Just for our manufacturing sector. Yeah, just for our manufacturing sector.
Sure. Well,
the first question is for Madame Lavardière. How would you recommend Prime Minister Harper try to engage the Chinese on the issues of Syria and Iran? You said that you don't like the approach of just saying you're bad boys, you're not behaving properly. So what does he need to do to engage China?
Well, one important aspect is it's not to go mellow, and doesn't mean going smooth on the Chinese for the veto. I think we're obviously nobody's happy with that veto, but one first step is certainly, we've heard the Russian foreign minister explaining the veto, the Chinese have done so, but try to have a good conversation. The first step is to understand why China vetoed that resolution. Understand well their concerns, because that's the only way you're able to come to some sort of agreement, to some sort of understanding where you can move ahead together. So understanding the reason is not accepting their veto, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And of course, we have to reiterate Canadian position on that issue and support for the UN resolution, for what the Arab League has done up to now, and move forward in that direction. And Canada has a unique opportunity to engage Chinese authorities on this issue right now, but shouldn't forget either to continue working on take other actions, as I was saying, support the Arab League, what the Arab League is doing, which would have the added benefit, maybe if we were to offer more forcefully our support and our help to the Arab League, maybe could mitigate a bit the bad impressions left by Minister Baird's last trip in the region. And we think also that it would be time to recall our ambassador to Syria so as to send a strong message to the Assad regime.
For Mr. Mass, regarding the trade components of this mission, what does the Prime Minister need to do for you to judge his efforts a success?
Well, I think being more open to start with, again, and recognizing from the position that our natural resources, yes, they can be a bargaining chip to some degree to open up some trade markets, but it has to be done with fair competitive practices. And to challenge the Chinese's veracity on their environmental, their human, and their labor rights. That's important because, this is a natural resource that's owned by all Canadians. It's been one that, it could also lead to greater competition into markets that we've been strong at. And I was expecting the Prime Minister at least to have the intent to make sure that if we're going to get into further competition with the Chinese, it's going to be fair competition. And I don't see that evidence. I don't see that happening, not only in terms of his language, but also the way that he's actually organized the trade mission. So to me, and it seems quite a knee-jerk reaction for what took place in Washington. It was almost like he said, I'm going to take my ball and go home, and then throws it out to the Chinese. That's not a trade policy. That's not a trade strategy. What we want to do is want to increase value-added jobs, and you can't even get conservatives to say that word. And that's critical for us in the future. It's not only it's part of our successful past as a nation, but also it's going to be where there's going to be countries that are fighting for these jobs, like the Obama administration. You're going to see Germany. You're going to see others that are actually going to fight for more value-added jobs and not see them erode like we have. We have a lot of natural resources that actually, with a proper business plan, actually can bring us to a better level of employment and employment standards. But we need to see the Prime Minister take leadership on that and also organize his trade mission in that way, but also to come out in the languaging and be really sensitive to the fact that if he's going to ship natural resources over to China, that we've expected that there are going to be the proper environmental, health, and other practices so that Canadians can compete in a fair way, and I think that's what most Canadians want.